pleased to welcome Arun Maji sir, please, to welcome our guest of honor, Dr. Lincoln Prabhakaran, with a flower and bouquet. Shawl.
ग्लोबल लॉ चैम्बर्स के चेयरमैन एडवोकेट श्री प्रभाकरण लिंकन जी तमिलनाडु से लेकर देश के कई हिस्सों में वंचित समाज के लोगों के लिए फ्री केस लड़ते आ रहे हैं और अब तक सैकड़ों लोगों की मदद कर चुके हैं.
Dr. Lincoln Prabhakaran is known as one of the topmost lawyers in the country for pro bono cases. He has handled almost 9,000 cases by now. Most of the cases are pro bono in nature, pertaining to the oppressed society, and he never takes the fees from some people and always appeared for them free of cost all over the place, including the trial court, High Court and the Supreme Court of India. And his presence actually in Delhi today on the very day of the Parinirvana day of B.R Ambedkar is a motivation for all of us. And then he is here to actually to see over the journalists who put their efforts and life for the people of the oppressed society. Though he come from Tamil Nadu, a small village near Madurai, but he has traveled all over the world, having the law chamber all over the world, as having every type of cases, but still is focused more on uplifting the suppressed community in the through the judiciary, especially standing very firmly on their side. We feel very honored, sir, your presence in Delhi. Thank you very much.
इसके बाद हमारे दूसरे गेस्ट ऑफ ऑनर है डॉक्टर राजू शक्तिवेल, जो कमिश्नर सेंट्रल एक्साइज एंड टैक्स हैं और अपने क्रांतिकारी अम्बेडकरवादी विचारों के लिए जाने जाते हैं.
We next welcome Dr. Raju Shaktivel in the bureaucracy, one of the revolutionary leader for us. He is a chief commissioner GST and customs, and one of the well-read and high-level intellectuals who we have in the Indian bureaucracy today. He is the reason behind Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, one of the pet project of our Prime Minister. He is the one who drafted it, and also major activism he done through high-level intellectuality. We request Arun Maji to kindly welcome our chief guest, our one of the speaker, with the flower and shawl. Thank you very much, sir.
इस कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाने से पहले मैं हमारे सभी गेस्ट ऑफ ऑनर से आग्रह करूंगी कि वो डॉक्टर B.R अम्बेडकर जी की तस्वीर पर कैंडल जलाकर आकर पुष्पांजलि अर्पित करें.
We request all of you to please come and then light the candle before this picture of Baba Saheb Ambedkar, and so that we can start our program.
शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय
We would like to call Dr. Lincoln Prabhakaran to speak on this auspicious event to institute this award actually. The first Dr. B.R Ambedkar Subaltern Journalism Award, and also throw light on the various aspects of social activism. Thank you, sir. Please come.
Good afternoon to all. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters of Dr. B.R Ambedkar. So I really thank the Town Hall Times editor, Dr. Surender, for organizing this a wonderful, a momentous and a glorious function in the name of conferring the award, Subaltern Award, in the field of journalism to the eminent journalists who all have assembled here. Of course, we don't have much crowd now, but I would say that quantity matters, quality matters rather than quantity. And the chief guest of this function, a reputed journalist in BBC, ESPN, and many other prominent news channels, to the respected sir, Shahidi, and the Delhi Law Times lawyer assembled here, and my good friend Raju Saktivel IRS, an eminent, dynamic, and a very straightforward officer to change the bureaucratic setup and outlook across the country by his pragmatic and progressive way of thinking and approach. And my esteemed friend, Dr. Veeramani, a professor in law in eminence in Jamia Islamia University, and who is the person, he is the key behind in making me to attend this program by constantly following up for more than 2 weeks, and his unwavering support, dedication, sincerity is really a noteworthy and a remarkable one. Now on going to this topic, I am of the view that why we should confer award upon the journalist, that to subaltern journalism award in the name of Dr. Ambedkar. So the topic also poignantly reminds us to have a look at the history. The freedom of the press, speech, and the right. These rights are conferred, bestowed, given to us not simply. And running a press, running a media is not an ordinary joke. You have to undergo a lot of trauma, turmoil, adversity, stiff opposition, resistance. If you take Socrates, the first and foremost ancient philosopher in the world, he was given a hemlock poison. For what? For talking in an atheist way. He was a rebellious, an intellectual persona like Dr. Ambedkar. So when Socrates said he was accused of corrupting the youth, the young, and they said he should be given a hemlock and he should be poisoned to death. He was given a capital punishment for creating awareness, for being rebellious, for making the people to think, question the authority, question the legitimacy, question the wrongdoers, why, what, where, why, how. So the authorities, people who were in power at that time, did not want an opposition to be made against them. Now in the 5th century, before the birth of Christ, Prabhakaran, an eminent philosopher, his book was burned. He was burned to death. Why? He questioned the existence of God. That's the reason he was poisoned to death. Then subsequently, if you go by the history, why is it so important? Because how the rights of the press and how Ambedkar plays a very crucial role in liberating the rights of the people through the medium of press. Now we call it as a fourth estate, most important pillar to protect the rights of the people. Now in the 16th century, more than that, if you take the most eminent philosophers in the world, starting from Galileo to Copernicus, they said that they made a scientific inquiry. They did not rely upon the dogma, religious dogma or superstition as propounded by Swami Vivekananda. If you take Swami Vivekananda, he says, if you read Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi, you can read the whole history of India. To read the whole history of India, you are supposed to read only two personalities here. One is Dr. Ambedkar and another is, I think everybody is silent here, Mahatma Gandhi. Now, Rajender Prasad, this hall exists in the name of the former president Rajender Prasad, who was the first president of India, who was a lawyer, whose birth anniversary is celebrated as a Lawyer's Day. Now, when I said that, the eminent philosophers like Copernicus and Galileo, more than that, Hugo Grotius. Who was Hugo Grotius? He's a lawyer. He was considered to be the father of international law. He was a founder of international law. Today, the League of Nations, United Nations, the rule of law all over the world exists only because of the father of international law, Hugo Grotius. His book was banned, questioned by the authorities because he spoke on the concept of universal brotherhood and against the discrimination, oppression, injustice like war crimes, so many other factors. Not only that, if you take Gibbon, Francis Bacon, or John Stuart Mill, or even Adam Smith, or John Locke, the ancient philosophers, the foundational political science experts, and the forefront fathers of journalism, all these people, writings were banned. Now you need to get a clearance from whom? Initially, the church, the canonical power came into the picture. Interestingly, because a journalist, you are getting the award, you should know the history and the background as to how the rights of the press came into existence all over the world. In the 14th century, 15th century, close by, there was a famous lawyer, Byron. What he did? He was an Oxford educated lawyer. He wrote against the authorities, against the church. For making such a rebellious writing, he was disrobed. He was removed from the position of a lawyer. Then a 5,000 pound at that time penalty was imposed. He paid the penalty. Not only that, his Oxford education was cancelled. He was degraded. More than that, shockingly, you will not believe, his 2 years was cut off. He was mutilated. Now only we have heard about Jesus Christ getting crucified, which became a Bible. People all over the world, they praise and portray. That's a great thing. But what happened to this lawyer? His ears were cut off. He did not stop with that. He wrote again. Not only he, along with him, 3 other people were given the same punishment. When he wrote for the second time, the stem of the ears which started to grow, that was also cut off for the second time. And he was given a life imprisonment this time. This led to sympathy and indignation across all over in United Kingdom. Then subsequently, the laws, now we call it as a libellous law, which is slandering law. Libel, a person, when he writes something against the government, it is considered to be libellous in nature and law. And slander is the one when a person makes a provocative speech or make a vituperative or outrageous speech condemning the acts of the government. Because when the gunpowder, when the art of printing came into existence, lot of tyranny and autocratic rule of the government were criticized by the people, by the intellectual scholarly writing. It is only the intellectual scholars, they question the authorities. Now, after these incidents, the government in monarchical government withdrew the act of punishing the writers for making a rebellious writing. That was for a temporary period, only for 20 years, 20 to 30 years. And during that period, when these punishments were withdrawn, history says that in the decade of 20 years, almost 40,000 articles were written. And these articles are still preserved in the Museum of London to honor, to make a homage and respect to the great writers who wrote in a dissenting way. As a lawyers, we used to say that dissent is the essence of democracy. Everybody concur in a democracy, it's not a democracy. It is an autocratic rule. Why we should have democracy? Democracy can be preserved when people, intellectual scholars, the right against the government by criticizing its negative pitfalls and attitudes. It can be controlled only by the medium of press or speech of expression. Through that, government can be controlled, not through way of elections. Now we have got electoral system. In a democracy, what happens? If a government is not performing, we have a system. Every 5 years, you can conduct an election. If the people, if they are dissatisfied with the government, they can vote by making a change in the government. That is how democracies are celebrated all over the world. But how do the people exercise or franchise their votes? It is only through the writings, criticizing the act of the government, by giving a clear picture. And what do the press they do? It's not like what you work on the air-conditioned hall and make a talk or tall intellectual writing through armchair proceedings. Journalists, what they do, they take a risk in their life. They go to the battlefield. They cover the war. And whenever there is a corruption, to expose the corruption, they take life risk and bring the truth. And they take on the mighty people. If there is a corruption in the bureaucracy or in the judiciary, they expose it. Including many of the scandals that has rocked this nation. You take LIC scandal, a Bofors scandal, or any scandal across the country, Arshad Mehta scandal, all these scandals were exposed only by the journalist and by the media. Fearless media who expose the negative act of the media, negative act of the government in the eyes of, before the eyes of the public. Now, during this period, the famous writer in the world, John Milton, who wrote the Paradise Lost, he said one poignant thing. We talk about liberty. Today, death anniversary of Ambedkar, the architect of the person who wrote the Indian Constitution. The preamble of the Constitution says, liberty, equality and fraternity. He said that, give me the liberty to know, to utter and argue upon the consciousness than any other liberties in the world. So we talk about liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship. But which liberty is very, very important? The liberty to know, to utter and argue. That means first you should receive the information, find out the truth, foundational truth, involved in any democratic setup, involved in any government, then to utter, to speak. Then intellectual people, through way of editorials, by way of letters, through way of circulars, they argue. Sometimes Lord Macaulay, he said, there was another judge, interestingly he wrote, you do not have any right to criticize or praise the government. So government is considered to be a sovereign, but in the modern trend it is not so. And whenever the writers or the people, when they start writing against the government, these rebellious writings were considered to be libellous in nature. As a result, they were prosecuted. for defamation, for defaming the government, which the British government, even what they did, they introduced section 121 IPC, that is incitement, sedition. If you take Bala Gangadhara Tilak, the trial of sedition case, and even such charges were foisted upon the father of nation Mahatma Gandhi when he wrote on the Harijan. All these freedom fighters took journalism as the main platform to expose the misdeeds of the government. You can imagine a situation if the Britishers, the church, the canonical power, if they are not willing to grant such a power even to its own citizens, British people, could they have granted or delegated this power to a colonial regime? Of course not. So Ambedkar thought about this in a very beautiful way. He understood that Indian political system suffered not only from colonialism but truly from casteism. So this colonialism and casteism considered to be the two great dangers, the cancer in the society. So he thought even if India become independent, because he was an independent thinker, you have to get rid of this untouchability, oppression and casteism. Same parallel, if you draw an analogy, I'll tell one or two classical examples. If you take the famous writer in the world, Bertrand Russell, people in the journalism field or in the writing field would not have forgotten the Bertrand Russell. When he wrote The Marriage and Morals, the book, when he had a personal idea about premarital sex or about the same sex and various other rights, traversing the morality of an individual, because people, they are subject to have their own interpretation and connotations. You are not supposed to follow the rest of the society in toto. When he was appointed as a professor in the New York by Thomas Manning, he was appointed to teach the subject of philosophy and also the subjects on mathematics, metaphysics and philosophy. A particular student, the girl student father, he filed a petition in the court that Russell shouldn't be given this opportunity. Russell should not be appointed because he objected on the ground of morality. He said, this professor is unfit to teach my daughter because he is acting against the doctrine of Bible. So he made a protest and he filed a petition. The matter went on. Russell made a dreadful fight. He fought for the protection of the freedom of the press, his religious, non-religious belief and his pragmatic thought. Now John Dewey. In the later part of Russell, John Dewey, who is one of the professor for Dr. Ambedkar in the Columbia Law School. When Dr. Ambedkar was a student at the Columbia Law School, he said that John Dewey, I owe all my intelligence and knowledge and I dedicate at the feet of John Dewey. I am Ambedkar today, it is only because of John Dewey. So if you take Ambedkar, his philosophical thought, all these thought writings were nurtured by the writings of or by the philosophical teaching of John Dewey. And later period, when the alma mater wanted to give him a doctorate, the Columbia Law School, when Dr. Ambedkar went to New York to receive his doctoral degree, he was very, very happy that he is going to meet his professor after a long, long period. But when Ambedkar landed, rather before he was supposed to land in New York, unfortunately his professor John Dewey passed away. He made a very deep resentment and condemned hurtful feelings regarding this particular sordid episode. Now, when Ambedkar as a journalist in America, it has got a big history, the right of the press. In West Virginia versus Barnett Board of Education, because right from John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, the founding fathers of the American Constitution, because our Indian Constitution is nothing but a product of an European and American law. Having underwent the trials and travails of the freedom of the press, the freedom of the press came to the forefront only after the French and the American Revolution. After the French Revolution in 1789, when America became independent in 1776, they had the writings of three eminent writers, John Locke, Montesquieu and Rousseau, about the theory of liberty. That is why the New York statue was gifted by the French people as a statue of liberty to preserve the right of liberty. Today, if you want to preserve the right of liberty, you should give the right to the press, to the media, to the people at large, because they are the voice of the people. Media people, but what happens here, interestingly, 90% of the population, that's what Karl Marx said, religion is nothing but an opium of the masses. Why he said? 90% of the people are uneducated. Uneducated in the sense, there was a famous journalist in America, he said, if you read newspaper, you are ill-informed. If you don't read newspaper, you are uninformed. So it is a stage between ill-informed and uninformed. When are you correctly or rightly informed? When you are correctly informed, when the journalism exposes the real truth. So, journalists, they play a very, very pivotal role in the modern society. In modern contemporary period, journalists are the change makers, chain makers, they are the heart and soul. Ambedkar, he said Article 32 of the Constitution is the heart and soul. I would say that journalists are the heart and soul of the voice of the people. Now, we only have a body. If you want to have a heart and soul, you should allow the journalist to write independently, fearlessly. Now, today what happens? Today there is a social media. Anybody can write, anybody can talk, anybody can criticize, anybody can condemn. Everyone is a writer. Those days, intellectual people, they used to write. When they write, they have to clear the first board of opposition, censor board, pre-censor. Only after the censor board gives a consent, unfortunately, even when Thomas Kemp, when he wrote the book Imitation of Christ, that book escaped the scrutiny of the censor board. Like jury system, 12 people, 12 shopkeepers. One philosopher said, I am writing a book, writing an article. This has to be cleared by the 12 shopkeepers. Who are they to give a clearance on my writing? Because it is like an air. I have a right to breathe. So I have a right to think, or condemn, or praise, or criticize. You can make, I wrote an article 15 years back. It is on the topic, radicalist, resurrectionist, and reactionarist Indian democracy. Because in my native state of Tamil Nadu, there was a famous writer called Perumal Murugan. You might have heard about him. When he wrote the book Madhuru Bohan, a famous book criticizing the prevalent social setup, many people, they try to kill him. Because, as I said, historically, people who were rebellious in nature, who wrote, their books were burned, they were given the punishment of pillory, they were stoned to death, they were mutilated, they have sacrificed. For what? To protect the rights of the press, to protect their voice. Dr. Ambedkar understood this reality. So he started Muk Nayak, voiceless of the dumb, and Vishi Bharat, excluded Bharat. And Samtan Janata, at the age of 29, 1920, January 31, Ambedkar started this Muk Nayak. When he started, he did not get any financial support. Only the Maharaja of Kolhapur came forward and rendered a financial assistance. Today, lot of leading newspapers in the country, they are predominant, they are well established, they have the financial resource and wherewithal. How? By advertisement. They get a lot of money in advertisement, much against their, you can see that they used to have a philosophy. If it is a literature, if you are intellectual, you should be wedded to an ideology. You should have some ideology or goal or objective. But what happens, for example, assuming you write against one particular government, criticizing the government. The same government comes forward and gives an advertisement in the same newspaper which is run by a particular media person. So he gets a lot of money on advertisement. This is a type of bribery given to them so that in future articles they do not criticize the government. Where is that question of fearless or independent media? Ambedkar thought about that and he was very particular that at that time many upper caste or upper segment people who were instrumental in dividing the society. Now Britishers, they are very clever and cunning. They divided our people, our country, based on the social hierarchical setup on the concept of Manu Dharma. That is, Ambedkar said, I will burn the book of Manu. Why he wanted to burn it? He said, it is a storage building which doesn't have a stair or access or entry to the downtrodden or people who belong to the various caste and segment. They cannot enter. Indian society is like a building and one people cannot enter into the next staircase because there is no entry. Because it is divided by the caste system. And further he said, if you are born in an upper society, even if you are undeserving, you cannot go down. Even if you are born in the lower strata of society, if you are deserving, you cannot go up. There is no lift or staircase to reach the top. Then what happens here? This is the social enigma. This is a social ostracization. This is inequality. This is against the constitution. So when we talk about the press right, Supreme Court has dealt with a category of decisions, number of decisions. Right from Rajagopal state of Tamil Nadu, that even prisoners, they have a right to express. And without their consent, you cannot publish a biography. So truth have to be retold. But intellectual, as I said, 90% of people in this country are uneducated, rather they're not interested, even among the educated elites. Doesn't mean that all the educated elites, they act in an intelligent mind. Only a very few noble, fire souls like poet Subramania Bharatiya, Tagore, or the great philosophical writers, in order to uplift the society, they used to come out with a vociferous or very dynamic thinking which can change the destiny of this world. That is why writing is so powerful, writers are so powerful. So Dr. Ambedkar, throughout his life, he faced a lot of struggle through way of financial struggle. He was not able to run the magazine either in a fortnight or a monthly. But he never compromised on his values. What value? He never obtained any advertisement from any of the upper strata in the society. The reason is, if you do not support our cause in abolishing the caste system, he had a great respect for Mahatma Gandhi, except on one point, because at one point of time there was a complete divergence, not convergence between them, because Mahatma Gandhi said that it is based on the Varna system, that is a system based on profession. People were divided. So, people were not given an opportunity. So he sternly said that this untouchability should be eradicated. This radical view of dividing the society based on the caste compulsion should be avoided. So Ambedkar said that if you are making this country to divide the people on casteist and communal line, we cannot allow that to happen, because everybody's dignity, rights should be protected. Now to sum up, what is happening in the contemporary India? Today, the famous writers, Galbargi was murdered. Dabholkar, who spoke against the superstition in Maharashtra, Bombay, he was mercilessly assassinated and murdered by the casteist and anti-fascist forces, fascist forces. These things in the ancient days or the middle period of our times, government were trying to suppress us through pre-censorship. Today, the hooligans through mob lynching, they take the power in their own hands and there is no rule of law. So journalists, they face a lot of threat to their life, liberty and property. But I would say that they are like a rising tide. They are like a continuous wave in an ocean. Because of the rebellious thinking and writing, they are not for awards. They are not for recognition. They are for igniting their soul, because they champion for the cause of the weak, vulnerable and the poor. That is the subaltern award of the journalism. If there is a real award like that of Nobel Prize in any other field, it should be the subaltern award initiated or instituted in the name of Dr. Ambedkar. So my hearty congratulations. I also, through Dr. Sveeramani, came to know that majority of the writers who are getting this award as a recognition, they have done a human service, a tremendous service in the grassroots level. So I will end up only one thing. Mahatma Gandhi said, if you want to launch any scheme in a government, it should reach the last man in the last row. You journalists, by working for the grassroots people have worked for the last man in the last row. So that is the real democracy, not by working for the or writing the pain of the topmost people. Today, when a cricket star receives an award, when a Filmfare award or when some actors issue happens, that is highlighted. Today there is nobody in this country to write on the farmers' right, farmers' protest, problem of the downtrodden, weak or vulnerable. Only you people journalists, by following the ethos, the philosophy, the principle of the great people across the world, including Dr. Ambedkar, by championing, by writing their cause, you are echoing the views and sentiments of the people. So you are the real writers, scholars. You deserve a high recognition from everyone, and we bow our head to all the awardees who have been recognized by this institution. It's a token of appreciation. Poet Bharati in Tamil used to say that if you are not able to feed one single person, you can destroy the whole world. I am of the view that you are feeding the whole world by satisfying their intellectual thirst. You are also feeding, because not through a physical feeding. That's why Thiruvallur, Saint Thiruvallur, I will tell in Tamil, Sevikuna Villada Polisi, the white. That means if you do not have anything to feed for your ears, for your knowledge, then only you are supposed to have consume something for your stomach. So more than your stomach, more than the food, the appetite for food, intellectual food, feast, desire is very important. as you are playing the role of a teacher, philosopher, and guide. You have to continue us, inspire us, and do many progressive things to change the society, to change the dynamics so that India emerges as a superpower. All the people get everything equally without any discrimination on the basis of any prejudice. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lincoln Prabhakaran, for such an electrifying speech. We know that your library worth is almost 9 crore rupees actually, the book you are owing in your library. This is the reflection. And many people, even sometimes we call him judge's nightmare, all over the place, not only from the trial court up to Supreme Court. So this is the reflection that you may be having the library worth of 9 crore rupees, but you are having also secret library at your home, 3 floors. Sometime you will get an opportunity to get some benefit out of that. And you said in the beginning that no, quantity does not matter, it's a quality. No worries, sir, it's a age of information.